in search of making problems. They have no roots and base in Afghanistan society. That's why they will be cultivated by them, and the Taliban and the current government in the country is serious about it. According to other Taliban officials in their military and intelligence parts I've been talking with, and they were told that I would never name them, that they have already put their people and their personnel in every corner of the country. They are in search of ISKP, those who were God, and also will be punished accordingly. In eastern Nangarhar, there are reports that the Taliban claim they have captured dozens of ISKP. Just last week, after the attack on the ceremony or the memorial of Zabila Mujahid's mother, in Kabul, there was also a suicide attack just in the entrance gate. And after 2 hours, there was an operation conducted by the Taliban forces in northern part of capital Kabul, where several of ISKP were killed, according to the Taliban. They also claim that there are much more initiatives to tackle with the ISKP, but the people of Afghanistan, particularly the Shiite Muslims in the country, they're in much more concerns and fear the attacks of the ISKP. It's not now, just by the formation of the new government in Afghanistan. But before that, during the previous administration in the country, there were several bloody attacks, even on the hospitals and educational centers, which killed and injured hundreds of people. Peninah.
All right, thank you very much for that, Marilai Abbasin, live for us in Kabul. Kenya says it will not recognize next week's expected ruling by the International Court of Justice on a maritime border dispute with Somalia. Although Kenya withdrew from the case earlier this year, the ICJ will deliver its ruling next week. CGTN's Daniel Arap Moi reports.
Kenya and Somalia have engaged in a protracted legal battle at the International Court of Justice over a maritime border. And over 100,000 square kilometers of Indian Ocean waters has since 2014 been at the center of the dispute. In March, Kenya withdrew from the case, accusing the court of bias.
The delivery of the judgment will be the culmination of a flawed judicial process that Kenya has had reservations with and withdrawn from on account not just of its obvious and inherent bias, but also of its unsuitability to resolve the dispute at hand.
The disputed area off the coast is thought to be rich in oil and gas. Kenya maintains that the dispute with Somalia be resolved through amicable negotiations.
It is important for every Kenyan to understand that threats to territorial integrity are now no longer necessarily overt or direct. The filing of a case against Kenya at the court and the court's assumption of jurisdiction where it had none are demonstrative of new tactics of using pseudo-judicial processes to undermine territorial integrity.
The East African country has also withdrawn its recognition of the court's compulsory jurisdiction.
As a sovereign nation, Kenya shall no longer be subject to an international court or tribunal without its expressed consent.
The government has called on Kenyans to remain calm as the country awaits the final judgment. Daniel Arap Moi, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
In Mali, the army says the death toll from an attack by Islamist militants on soldiers in the central part of the country has risen to 16. The hit took place near the village of Bordio in the Mopti region, known to be the epicenter of violence in Mali. This marks one of the heaviest losses suffered by Malian troops in recent months, despite efforts by local and foreign forces to defeat armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. Mali has been struggling to contain fighting that erupted in the north since 2012 and has caused the death of thousands of civilians and soldiers. The UN this month raised the alarm over the situation in the country, saying that authorities overseeing the transition in Mali have so far failed to deliver on their promises. Authorities in Niger are struggling to quell a new tactic by militants to spread violence in the Sahel by eliminating local leaders from villages. The Nigerian government says that it is in the process of reclaiming zones near the Malian border. However, continued attacks against civilians have left many reluctant to return to their homes. CGTN's Joy Kiruki brings us more details.
In Niger, a power vacuum looms among villages which have lost their chiefs to attacks by militants affiliated to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group. Dozens of chiefs have fled from villages near the Malian border in fear for their lives.
Les chefs de village sont le prolongement.
The village chiefs are the extension of our administration. They represent the administration in their village. So by attacking the village chiefs, they are actually attacking the authority of the state. And these village chiefs play the role of administration in their respective entities since they represent the state.
The village chiefs are among millions across the Sahel who have been uprooted as they search for peace and safety. The government, however, says it is reclaiming zones near the Malian border, allowing some civilians to return in recent months.
The terrorists are extremely weakened, whether in Niger or Mali. And it is this weakening that also explains why they changed their ways of doing things. They had a certain moment, in particular 2019, 2020, they had success compared to our security forces. There were deadly attacks, in particular the villages of Inates and Chinagodral, which were very difficult moment for us. But since this date, we also changed methods and strategies. We became much more mobile.
In the past 4 years, thousands of people have been killed in attacks in 3 Sahel countries, Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso. And now, with a new target on the backs of community leaders, ties between rural communities and central governments are now becoming strained. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a short break. Coming up, Guinea's new Prime Minister pledges to stick to the junta transition plan. And medics in Kenya working to raise awareness about childhood cancer.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo, Juba, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
Who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Guinea's new transition Prime Minister, Mohamed Bouazizi, has vowed to create an environment that will enable the country move forward. Bouazizi delivered his first speech on Thursday after the interim president, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, named him the new Prime Minister. The 68-year-old is an engineering graduate and an expert in agricultural development financing and risk management.
Guinea's new transition Prime Minister, Mohamed Bouazizi, is a man with no national government experience, but seems to have a plan for Guinea.
We have a mission to deliver. and my government will be composed of specific deliverables. We will be honest about what we can do and what we cannot do. The most important thing is to build the foundation for change, justice and administration. I think this is necessary for the political part to take place in better conditions and for the best to win elections at the end. We are here, as the President said, to serve and to create the conditions and to live.
A transition charter currently in place has also painted a picture of what his duties will be.
My priorities are those of the National Committee for the Rally and Development. They were mentioned not only in the Transitional Charter, but also in the program of 2nd October. I ask the press to popularize each of these priorities among the Guinean people and to help draw up an action plan so that our country has the foundation to become a fair and equitable democracy at the service of its people.
The appointment of the Prime Minister comes a week after the publication of the Transition Charter. It has since sparked reactions from across society.
I think that this appointment was already expected because it allows us today to move forward in the implementation of several actions that are linked to the overall conduct of this transition. As far as civil society is concerned, we welcomed this appointment with a great satisfaction because it will allow us to evolve and move forward very quickly. It is the question of the reform that we are going to propose and defend for this transition.
Some say a PM with non-national government experience is a good bet for Guinea's future. It distances him from the Guinean political infighting of recent years. Cham Rono, CGTN.
The World Health Organization says it wants 40% of the global population to be vaccinated by the end of the year. To give us more insights on the existing inequalities surrounding the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines, we earlier spoke to Dr. Mary Stephens, the technical officer of the WHO Regional Office for Africa.
Well, let's quickly look at the statistics of what we have as at this morning with regards to vaccination on the continent. So far we have received 217 million doses of vaccines on the continent, and we have administered 153 million, which is about 70% of the doses we have received so far. A total of 64.7 million people have been fully vaccinated on the continent. Yes, so the inequity still remains. We have seen some improvement in terms of the vaccine access on the continent. For example, in September, we received about 23 million doses of vaccine, which was a tenfold increase from the doses we received around June this year. But we are not where we want to be. But definitely not where we were before. If you remember earlier in October, we declared that about 15% of the countries in Africa met the 10% target, but definitely, yes, the inequity still remains. Most of the challenges we have, especially in Africa, is with regards to access to this vaccine. Yes, there are some countries that are dealing with issues of hesitancy and all that, but the major problem we have is access to the vaccine. And this is as a result of the problem with access to vaccines globally, manufacturing capacity, and where you have some of those high-income countries buying up these vaccines. So what we are calling on the global community basically to do is to make sure that the countries that have excess doses, they are sharing those doses. Those that have vaccinated a large proportion of their countries should give up their space on the queue for COVAX to access more vaccines so that they can deploy these vaccines to low and middle income countries. And of course, continue to enhance capacity for production of vaccine, especially in Africa as well. So we can ramp up the quantity of vaccines we have globally and therefore increase the vaccination coverage.
In Uganda, there are growing concerns about an increase in cases of child sex abuse, a problem that has been worsened by recent lockdowns. The Gender Ministry warns that parents are neglecting their responsibility to keep their children safe while schools are shut. Isabel Nakiria reports from Kampala.
Alice Babire's story is painful to hear. She left home after being tricked by a motorcycle taxi rider to visit him. He gave her money in return for sex. Babire, who is just 16 years, is now 7 months pregnant. But she will have to take care of her baby alone after the man who defiled her abandoned her.
My aunt told me, "Go away from here. I don't want to see you."
Her mother too could not take her in.
My mother became so disappointed because what I did was shaming.
Babire was brought to this shelter by her sister. The shelter takes care of young mothers abandoned by their relatives. She's learning cooking and tailoring skills. Child welfare officers blame parents for not keeping a watchful eye on their children during the lockdown.
Why don't we apply the same strict regulations at home? Why do we expect the schools to do so? I mean, that is a call to families, to parents, to learn how to bring up their children with or without school.
Schools in Uganda have been closed for over a year as a measure to bring down infection rates. The government has announced that primary and secondary schools will resume in January next year. But there's worry that it's now too late and many girls may not report back due to unintended pregnancies. The government says parents need to do more to keep their children safe from sexual predators.
It is clear that many more children are suffering in silence. Fellow parents and guardians, this is not the way we want to take care of our children. What we are experiencing is a failure in leadership at the family and community levels.
The Ugandan police annual crime report shows that over 14,000 cases of sexual abuse were reported in 2020, up from over 13,000 in 2019. Of these, 120 girls were abused by their parents, and there are fears that the numbers could go up this year. Babire and hundreds of girls out there are not sure if they will return to class. But Babire wants to use the skills she's getting here to build a future for herself and her baby. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Medics in Kenya are working to raise awareness about childhood cancer, including the signs and symptoms to watch out for and the need for early diagnosis and treatment. Experts say most childhood cancers can be cured. This means many of the deaths among children with cancer in low and middle income countries can be avoided if the disease is diagnosed early. CGTN's Wukes Tanyabwa spent a day with a parent and her child in Kenya's biggest referral hospital and filed the following report.
This is the entrance to the Children's Cancer Ward, one of 3 such wards at Kenyatta National Hospital, Kenya's largest referral facility. Parents who are referred here with their children hope that the medics will treat their children and send them home with a clean bill of health. But it's not an easy journey. Flivia Naviole tries to create a sense of normalcy for her daughter, but her efforts to be jovial cannot mask reality. The two have spent the better part of 2020 admitted in this ward as her daughter battles leukemia, cancer of the blood.
It started when I noticed that she was tired all the time, which was unusual.
The test results confirmed their fears, and they began the journey of cycles of costly treatment, stays at the hospital, and desperately clinging to hope.
I would love to be told that my child is cured, but they say the ultimate treatment is a transplant. I wonder how I would afford that as chemotherapy is already expensive. We just keep hoping and praying for a different outcome.
Flivia's daughter is one of 71 cancer patients in the ward. The most complex cases from across the country are sent here. Some are accompanied by parents, while older ones have some independence, and doctors say the numbers are rising.
Numbers are increasing, and we could say for us as Kenyatta National Hospital, we are probably handling the bulk.
Dr. Irene Zamo is a pediatric hematologist and oncologist, meaning she treats children with cancer and blood diseases. Leukemia is the most common type of cancer among the young patients at this hospital, followed by lymphomas, cancers that start in the body's lymphatic system. When it comes to solid tumors, Kidney tumors are the most common at the hospital. Liver cancer and cancers of the muscle are also common. Most patients range in age from between 2 to 8 years old.
Most of the cancers in children are actually genetic. There will be something that went wrong in the chromosome of the baby at some point before birth, or even as they develop. We call them mutations, and that error makes them at a higher risk of getting cancer.
Data from the Kenya Cancer Network indicates there are about 40,000 new cases of cancer each year in the country, and this leads to about 28,000 deaths annually. Information about cancer in children is harder to find. Treatment can run into tens of thousands of dollars. The Kenyan government has now stepped up its response to the mounting threat of cancer. Efforts are underway to boost the capacity of health providers and the public through training on early cancer screening while expanding the availability of specialized personnel.
Anything unusual, early warning signs in a baby, that is a trigger for us to suspect, scan, do some tests, detect it early, treat early and cure. So early detection, chances of cure 85%, 90%, depending on the type of the cancer, because we have some types that are very aggressive.
For parents of children with cancer, every new finding, every new procedure and every drug is a dose of much needed hope as they battle childhood cancer. Wilkes Anyabwa, CGTN.
Let's now catch up with the day's business news. For the very latest, we cross over to Uche.
Thanks, Peninah. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. Britain to scrap a tough COVID-19 quarantine requirements for 47 destinations. And Tunisia hosts the 16th edition of the Mediterranean Building Exhibition.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
It's just taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Well, let's start off with some international news. Britain will scrap tough COVID-19 quarantine requirements for 47 destinations, including South Africa and Thailand. Now, Transport Minister Grant Shapps announced that the changes will be introduced on Monday, and he also called it a step forward for Britain's travel sector. Now, countries such as India, Kenya and Ghana will have their rules eased, meaning that the inoculation status of arrivals will be recognized. Fully vaccinated arrivals will only need to take a test on day 2 to check for COVID-19. Meanwhile, 7 nations will remain on the red list, including Colombia, Ecuador, Panama and Venezuela.
It's obviously a major step forward for travel and for people wanting to travel and for the travel sector, with 47 countries coming off the red list, meaning people can now travel, amongst other changes. We know with coronavirus that things can change, but I do also think that at this stage, with so many people fully vaccinated, both here at home but also now abroad, that things have settled down a lot, and that's why this is a major step forward today.
And heading to Tunisia now, the country is hosting the 16th edition of the Mediterranean Building Exhibition, or Medimat. This year's edition is in Sfax, Tunisia's economic hub in the south. Libya has been invited as the guest of honor, and there's also keen focus on China, which experts say play a central role in reviving the building and construction sector on the continent. Here's Adnan Shaushi with the latest.
The Tunisian Minister of Public Works, Housing and Spatial Planning declared that 150 exhibitors in the fields of construction and public works from 17 countries of Africa, Europe and Latin America are taking part in this international event.
We rely on this fair to strengthen Tunisia's positioning in Africa in the building and construction sectors, especially the public-private partnership, and to export the services of our companies to Africa and the Mediterranean region.
Members of the Libyan delegation said that boosting cooperation between Tunis and Tripoli is necessary in order to step up Libya's reconstruction after years of civil war. The host of the exhibition, the Sfax Chamber of Commerce and Industry, aims to boost partnership with Libyan enterprises.
The partnership between Tunisian and Libyan construction companies is vital for the economy. Several projects are underway in Libyan municipalities. This international event aims to strengthen the existing partnership and to look for new markets.
Officials at the event said that Chinese construction and engineering companies can play an important role in infrastructure projects in Libya and throughout Africa.
Chinese companies have huge capacity, the know-how and the skills to lead reconstruction projects in Libya. Our experience with Chinese firms has always been successful in the telecom sector since 2011. China can help rebuild Libya with its talented workforce as well as the gigantic construction firms. We welcome our Chinese friends in Libya.
We have strong cooperation ties with China in different domains like infrastructure. We think China can take its active part in the development of the building sector. China is already building social housing in Mali. Malian contractors and enterprises are already working closely with Chinese enterprises.
The Malian delegation in Sfax has presented the project of development of river nature banks in the capital Bamako over several kilometers and a public partnership project. Malian officials expressed hope to see Tunisia contribute to the realization of this project as a distinguished partner. Tunisian authorities say the 16th edition of the Mediterranean Building Exhibition seeks to develop exchanges between African, European, Asian and South American professionals. Senior members of the Arab Asian Chamber of Commerce and the Africa Link Business Network took part in the event in Sfax. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Meanwhile, in Nigeria, the central bank will launch the e-Naira, its digital currency, in a couple of days from now. That is according to Governor Godwin Emefiele, who told a conference on Thursday. He said this will make Nigeria one of the first countries in Africa and indeed the globe to adopt the digitization of its national currency. Now, the CBN had announced plans to launch its own digital currency this year after Nigeria barred banks and financial institutions from dealing in or facilitating transactions in cryptocurrencies in February. Emefiele had said that the e-Naira will operate as a wallet against which customers could hold existing funds in their bank accounts, and that this will accelerate financial inclusion and also enable cheaper and faster remittance inflows. Meanwhile, Zambia has been conducting an energy week to sensitize consumers on renewable energy technologies. This is in line with the government's goal to invest in diverse sources of energy to realize desired economic goals. Now, consumers have been treated to locally available renewable energy alternatives as well as ways to use available energy efficiently. The week has also endeavored to raise public awareness on government programs and developments in its energy sector. The New Dawn government is committed to providing energy security. It promises to deliver universal access to clean and modern energy services by 2030 and also establish Zambia as a net exporter of energy.
We are moving towards a rich energy mix where we are looking at renewable energies, and we've set up a department specifically to focus on these initiatives of green energy, which is much more sustainable. And sustainability is defined as, meeting today's needs without sacrificing the needs of the future. So what are we doing? We've already invested in solar energy, and at the moment we are injecting about 84 megawatts of solar-powered electricity into the national grid. We have already engaged and started implementing the 600 megawatts energy in Chibombo 200, Kafue, as well as Siavonga. And 600 megawatts plus another 84 megawatts, we are looking at moving the country towards renewable energies as the only sustainable energy sources.
And in Tanzania, collaboration between mobile phone operators, banks and fintech startups are now changing businesses and financial services in the country. This trend is expected to further promote the use of digital payments. Well, fintech solutions like Tunza are now changing the way low-income Tanzanians save and also access funds to improve their livelihoods. Here's CGTN's Daniel Kijo with more.
Founded just 3 months ago, financial technology company Tunza is offering low-income Tanzanians an opportunity to save the items they need without having to use a bank. Since June this year, the company has already grown 5 times. With 5,000 registered accounts, 100 people registering on the platform each day, this is just one of the many fintech companies that are mushrooming in Tanzania's financial service sector. With over 1,000 placed orders, 200 businesses signed up to sell goods on the platform, Tunza's founder says his company exists for one function: to use technology for enhancing financial inclusion.
We found our sweet spot, which is the combination of a marketplace. We put merchants here, people who are selling TVs, cell phones, on one platform. And then on the other side, you have people who have their money on mobile money services. So we thought, what if we could combine these two, allow people to access goods and services, but at the same time using technology and some banking knowledge.
The government works with organizations like the Financial Sector Deepening Trust, or FSDT, to drive the shift in the financial inclusion agenda, from access to usage and quality. According to FinScope Tanzania 2017, Tanzania has made remarkable progress in expanding the opportunities for people to access and use financial services. The use of form of financial services has reached 65% in 2017 compared to 57.7% in 2013.
If we are to refer to the statistics from 2017 FinScope, we have a complete turn of the market where we're having 65% of the people, by and large, are actually included in the financial system. And the biggest driver of that has actually been the digital financial services. And from in one way or another, the digital financial services is a disruption that has happened. And that's basically what you're talking about, fintech here coming to have a big play into the financial sector development in the market.
Mobile money solutions like M-Pesa, offered by Vodacom, and Tigo Pesa, offered by Tigo, were some of the first crossover financial solutions, connecting banks to mobile phone users. Since then, the growth in active mobile wallets reaching over 21 million users, which are held by 16.6 million Tanzanian adults, as reported by FinScope Tanzania 2017. But the head of FSDT feels this is just the beginning.
You need to be thinking grand, you need to thinking major, and that is an excellent competence that is actually being brought about by the MNOs. They know how to actually reach the people. They have the mechanism to actually be able to extend those rails so that they're able to reach. So a combination of the two, and then interesting enough, you're also bringing in the fintechs. The fintechs by themselves, they also have a huge role because these guys they're bubbling with ideas, disruptive ideas, ideas that will actually change the business model that is needed.
Technologies like Tunza offer safe and secure transactions that let customers and businesses operate with confidence. It's hoped that this financial inclusion increase will create capital accumulation, which in turn increases economic growth. A few years ago, financial institutions, mobile phone companies and fintech companies were competing to service Tanzania's 67% unbanked population. But as financial inclusion, innovation and technologies grow, the separating line between these players is slowly getting blurred, allowing a blending of services that is enhancing access to financial services for the people who need it most. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
And the International Monetary Fund is urging governments around the world to begin considering scaling back accommodative fiscal policy put in place during the COVID-19 pandemic. But the IMF also says that nations may be in different stages of economic recovery, and that needs to be taken into consideration. Here's William Denslow with more from New York.
To help gain investor confidence, the International Monetary Fund has urged governments to start preparing to enact more sustainable budgets. Economies worldwide are gradually opening up after months of COVID-19 lockdowns. But the IMF warns that each nation must determine the speed it tapers accommodative fiscal policies. Speaking to Reuters, the IMF's Deputy Fiscal Affairs Director Paulo Moro said that the health emergency should continue to be the priority in countries still struggling to contain the coronavirus. In a chapter titled Strengthening the Credibility of Public Finances, the IMF's Fiscal Monitor report said that nations will be rewarded with greater debt refinancing flexibility and lower borrowing costs if they commit to credible fiscal sustainability targets over the medium term. This comes as the US Federal Reserve has signalled that it will likely soon begin tapering its pandemic-era monthly $120 billion bond buying programme. The IMF states that fiscal strategies should be flexible to take into account future obstacles that the pandemic may present. The IMF cited Israel's decision to ease unemployment benefits pending declining jobless rates as an example of this. William Denslow, CGTN, New York.
And that's all for now on Africa Live Biz. But coming up later on Global Business Africa, more on Sudan, which is experiencing shortages of essential supplies and commodities due to ongoing protests. Of course, all that coming up at top of the hour. For now, back to you, Peninah.
Thank you, Uche. You're watching Africa Live. Coming up on our series on women making a difference. We'll look at an Egyptian philanthropist touching young lives through her work at an orphanage in Cairo.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Let's turn to our series on African women making a difference in their community. And today we'll look at an Egyptian philanthropist who's been running her own orphanage and charity organization in Cairo. Yasser Hakim has more.
A popular Arab saying goes, success is born from the womb of suffering. This applies to Nozed, who turned her personal tragedy into success by helping the community.
I was married when I was in college and had one son. I used to live a good life, work, traveling, enjoying my time, until I lost my only son in an accident aged 22. Life suddenly turned upside down for me. I felt like life has stopped. There was no meaning in it, just filled with sadness. I decided to turn this negativity into something that would benefit me, my late son Mohammed, and the community.
Nuzed built a mosque and this orphanage named after her deceased son, Muhammad Raghib, in a poor neighborhood at West Cairo's 6th of October city. It's not like any other orphanage. She treats the 55 kids inside like her own.
I
consider this place their home. I have raised them as my children. I'm totally responsible for them until they graduate and get married. I have bought a building to provide an apartment for each of them. I am looking to buy 2, 3, 4 buildings to have at least 55 apartments for them when they grow up. I opened a savings account for each of them and deposit a monthly allowance to benefit them when they grow up, either to set up a business, for marriage costs, anything they need.
She didn't stop there. Nuzed is also known for helping treat the poor. She opened medical centers in several locations for this purpose.
We have otolaryngologists, pediatricians, internists, gynecologists, and dentists. At the mosque, we help orphans, divorced mothers, and the elderly. We give them monthly financial aid and regular medical checkups and treat any ailments for free. If any of them needs a big operation, we work with the Ministry of Health to take them to the suitable hospital free of charge. We serve anyone who is in need, but priority is for people living in this area. Most of them are very poor, and we know their cases in detail.
A philanthropist, Nuzed covers most expenses from her own pockets and her late husband's will dedicated solely to the orphanage. The rest are donations from close friends only. Her dream is to help as many orphans as possible till the last day in her life, in memory of her late son. Yes Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
And coming up in sports, Egypt hosts neighbours Libya in crucial Group F World Cup qualifier tie.